Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Zoom version of All Trades with Nolan Robinson. I'm Nolan Robinson, and I'd like to welcome you to my very first show here. It's on Zoom because right now I am just sitting in my living room while we're all in quarantine because of the coronavirus COVID-19 epidemic that's ravaging the world. And I wanted to spread a little hope, a little inspiration, encourage you all. And similar to how I interview spectacular people on the podcast, I'm doing the same with this Zoom interview series. So my first guest today is Larry Saperstein, who plays Big Red in High School Musical, the musical, the series, a show that I love. I watch it with my twin sister, and hopefully you watch the show too. He plays Big Red, like I said before, and he's the best friend of the protagonist in the show. Wonderful actor, wonderful singer, phenomenal tap dancer, and I'm so happy to have him on. So Larry, hi.
Hi.
Yes, everyone give it up for Larry. It's good to see you.
Good to see
How
you.
have you been? How have you been holding up during this?
I'm pretty good. I think this is like my 17th or 18th day inside, or maybe even 20th day. I
20th,
think
wow.
tomorrow will be 3 full weeks. So
Yeah, and how have you been passing the time?
I'm practicing piano. I wanted to get that
Okay.
was like my main goal, was like I was gonna get really good at piano during my quarantine. And you'd be surprised, like if you practice a
Yeah.
couple hours a day, you can
Yeah,
like
I
do
saw
a
your
lot in a short amount of time.
IGTV video
Oh
just
yeah.
a moment ago. Yeah, that was great. So a quadruple threat then, most likely actor, dancer, singer, piano player now. Um
Yeah, one day we can say.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, tell us a bit about yourself. So, you act, you sing, you dance. Now you're learning to play piano. So, do you go to school for the arts?
Yeah, so my initial so I grew up on Long Island in New York.
Mhm.
And I grew up in like a theater community for the most part. I was, in my high school shows and all of that. And then so I started going to Pace University actually for I was going to study design for the theater, because going into college, I sort of already had a structure to be able to perform in my
Yeah,
adult life. And so I wanted to learn something else that could hopefully transition into me being a director, writer, um, et cetera, et cetera. So uh, at the moment, the design program was like the best way to do that, and be in the city and all of that. So I actually didn't go to like a musical theater program,
hmm
but it kind of all worked out because I was in kind of the right place at the right time to be able to do this show, and yeah.
that's awesome. And then you talked about design and just wanting to be, um, capable of doing so many things and not just acting, which is
Yeah.
great because the show is called Of All Trades. So, is there anyone that you'd lean on in particular? Like, if you had the choice, maybe tomorrow to, design a show or act in a show or even choreograph a show, because I know you're a dancer, would that answer come easily, or are you still at a stage where you're trying to figure out what would be more fulfilling for you at that moment?
Well, I think like as with anything, it's always like a process. And so I'm never necessarily looking at like the thing that I want to do right now. I'm always kind
Yeah.
of looking at the thing that I might want to do in like 10 years,
hmm
and kind of using, especially being like a young person, I
Yeah.
think taking everything that I have right now, all of the skills that I have, and just trying to be as best at all of those as I possibly can so that when the
Mhm.
right door opens, I'm able to walk through it. I think it's
Exactly. Yeah.
like a valuable lesson for anyone that's in the arts. I mean, uh, you're never going to be penalized for being able to do more things. So I think if you're passionate about everything, it's totally acceptable and valid to try and learn as many things within the field as possible.
Right.
Um, and yeah, and I mean, but for now, especially because of the show and especially because of the opportunities that I've been able to have in the past year and a half, um, acting is becoming my main focus.
hmm
but that the show takes a lot of time,
Yeah.
and so that when you're working on something so heavily like that, it kind of does take up your main brain capacity, if you will.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, and I watched the entire first season. I absolutely loved it.
Thank you.
You talked about the show taking a lot of time to make.
Hmm.
I assume that you guys have halted production
Yeah.
because of. Okay, yeah, that's what I imagined.
Yeah.
And I
So
wanted to. Yeah,
yes.
continue.
So we had just finished the second episode of the second season,
Hmm.
and now I'm at my the house that I grew up in on Long Island. Um, so yeah. So I came back to New York just for this period of time.
Nice. And you said you've been there for almost 3 weeks. Yeah.
Almost 3 weeks. Yeah.
Almost 3 weeks. That's insane. And there was one moment in High School Musical, the musical, the series, I have to say the full name,
Yeah.
where your character, I think, I consider it, I don't know if you think the same, but I think it was probably the breakout moment in the show during the season finale where you came out after the credits and did your tap dance. That
Yeah.
was amazing. And then the confetti um, was blown in the background. So how did that come to be? Did the producers know you were a tap dancer already, or did they find out and wrote it in for you?
Yeah, so it was not initially in the description of the character.
Hmm.
Initially, Big Red was really never supposed to do any of that.
Yeah.
The initial, like, I actually, when I got cast, I was able to read the very first draft that was written, which had, some of the characters were different ages, and Carlos's character had a different name. Like, there's all these different changes that were made when casting took place, which I think is very common in a lot of TV shows. You start to write for what you get inspired by, and a lot of times you
Hmm.
get inspired by the people that you are drawn to when you're casting, and so it's very very possible to change a character to fit a certain actor as opposed to have an actor fit a certain character when you're doing television, because you're going to be working with them for hopefully 2, 3, 10 years.
Yeah.
So in the case of a very successful TV show, so it's very common to fit the character into who the actors are.
Hmm.
And so when I was in my final round of casting, they I think they do this with a lot of actors. Like, they'll look at their Instagram, they look at my website, whatever, and it's very prominent on those platforms that I was a tap dancer, and there were videos and all of that. And so Tim, the executive producer, said that when he saw those tap dance videos, he knew that that's how they were going to end the season.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
so it happened, like right when I was cast. It was part of me being cast. They were like, this is what we want to do. We want to have this character be sort of in the background, and then at the end really have a special moment. And so I kind of waited for that moment for the whole season, because I knew it was coming, but I had to be very careful about what I was sharing online, and because I didn't want to ruin
Hmm.
the surprise for people. And so yeah, so for me, it was something that I always knew was going to happen, but I had to kind of play it out and see how it came about.
Totally. And let's actually talk about that process with getting on the show. So earlier, before you said that by going to place, you were just in the right place at the right time.
Yeah.
Did you hear about the audition from an agent or your friend? And did you have any inkling at all that you would go for this? Or,
Yeah. So
yeah.
yeah. So I have had like representation as an actor since I was younger. When
Hmm.
I was growing up, I was tap dancing in the city. I was kind of dancing with all the Broadway kids, like kids that were in Mary Poppins or Billy Elliot, because those were
Hmm.
Matilda was kind of around the same time as when I was
Right.
that age. Um, and so a lot of those kids were my friends, and so just by being associated with them, I was able to get an agent and all that stuff. And while I was in college, I did like my first year of college, I wound up doing a feature film,
Hmm.
um, that was like a horror movie, but not totally like part of my whole thing now. But
Right.
it was a great learning experience to do that film, and I had done a couple of other guest spots on shows, so I wasn't like new to the acting world. So I had
Hmm.
people that were sending me on auditions even while I was going to school for design.
Right.
Um, And so when it started, it was just another audition. Like I saw the audition, I got it sent, and initially I actually couldn't go because I was going to visit my grandparents in Florida, and so I called up my manager and I said, "Can we do? I don't know if I can make it." And they called me back and they said, "All right, here's the deal. This role is like perfect for you.
Yeah.
So if you can get there, and we'll try to figure out if we can do a different day." So they moved it like a day early because they were doing other auditions for other things the day before, and I took off of work, and I actually got I was working reception at a dance studio at the time, and when I took off to go to the audition, they got really mad at me and they took me off the schedule. And so they put me as like they didn't fire me necessarily, but they took me off the permanent schedule and had me working only as a sub. So if I
Mhm.
had not gotten this job, I would have lost my other job anyway.
Oh no,
Um,
yeah.
so I was very lucky. So I was down in Florida. So I auditioned, went down to Florida, and then I was there for about 24 hours. And I got a phone call saying, "Is there any way you can make it back to New York tomorrow?" And I was like, "Okay, well, I'm supposed to be here for another 4 days. I don't know." And they said, "Okay." And then they called me back and they were like, "Okay, here's the deal. It's like you and three other people and the producers, and they really want you there. So, spend the money, do it. It's, get a ticket because chances are you will, this will be good for you." And
Wow.
so I went, I found like the next flight that I could out of Florida, came back to New York, um, was in there the next afternoon with the producers. And then a couple days later, they said they wanted to fly me out to LA to do a network test, and like I booked it. So it was and they really had to rush that process because I was
Mhm.
the last series regular that was cast. They were really struggling finding a big red, and so yeah,
And they found one in you.
yeah.
That's an amazing story. And I'm sure after all of it, your grandparents understood everything
Oh
that
yes,
was
they're
happening.
very proud.
Yeah. And then, so the show itself is, I'm 20 years old. You're 20, you're 21.
I'm 21.
21, yeah. So we grew up with High School Musical, the trilogy,
Yeah,
and it has a huge legacy. And I just want to talk about that legacy for a bit with you working on the series. Were were you scared at all being a part of the legacy that has been so influential in so many lives, not only our ages but people older than us grew up with High School Musical as
yeah,
well? Yeah, were you nervous, scared, adding to that legacy and also making,
yeah. I mean,
um, yeah.
it's so interesting because I've gotten this question so many times, but you're the first person to ask it in conjunction with my age.
Hmm.
Um, and I try not to talk about my age a lot because I am playing a high schooler, and so
Right.
and I'm not the oldest person on the cast. Like there's a handful of us that are, obviously like Olivia and Sophia are really that like target age, and we're all playing that age. But there's a handful of us that are a little bit older.
Hmm.
But I think that in a way, Olivia and Sophia and the younger cast members, like they grew up with High School Musical, but not in the same way that we did, where like that 5 years really did make a difference, where it's like so influential to us um as like the older kids. And so I think having some of those older actors that can really speak to how important it was and can like remember that time and pay it even a little bit more tribute has been really interesting to see, and to see the differences, because
Yeah.
also a huge part of the show is not paying tribute to High School Musical and doing
Hmm.
our own thing and having it be completely unique but just like in the same place. And especially we see that a lot with season two. Like, obviously it's been announced that season two is about Beauty and the Beast. And so we're not doing High School Musical anymore. Now we're doing Beauty and the Beast. And so again, like I think one of the things that we really succeeded with season one was getting people invested in us as a new cast and a new show, and having it be this totally new thing. Um, so yeah, so I think it's been really cool to see that shift, because of course when we were first announced, it was like, if they're not the original cast, we don't want it, yada yada yada. But now I think we've grown away from that, which has been really nice. There was a lot of pressure, especially with like the comments online and all of that stuff. But the original cast members that I've met, and I've met a handful, like Corbin did some stuff with us, and of course Lucas was in the show,
Right.
and Monique I met, and Casey, who plays Martha Cox. So they've all been, very supportive and very kind. And the great part about our show too is because we're filming in the same location, there were so many people, crew members, that worked on all three original
Um,
movies.
wow.
So they were as excited, I think, as the fans are, to have this sort of new experience in this location that we've all grown to love so much. And I remember like the first couple of times that we went to the school, it was terrifying. Like I was like, oh my God, that's the cafeteria, that's the gym, that's Sharpay's locker, whatever. But now it feels like it's my high school. I've spent so
Yeah, it
much
feels
time
like
there.
home.
Yeah, that it really is. Yeah.
Yeah, and then earlier you talked about how the characters, who you are as people, inspire what your characters become to be in the show.
Yeah.
Can you talk a bit about how you've been inspired by the cast members that you work with? Because those who aren't in the process don't know how much of a family is formed
Yeah.
in that long time. So can you talk about that a bit?
Yeah. I mean, I think it happens with it happens with films sometimes, but it mostly happens, I would say, with theater and with television, where like you're really working with people for, if you're in a Broadway show, you can be in that show for 2, 3 years, and you're seeing the same people every single day. And I think it's very similar on a TV show because we work for 6 months, filming the seasons, and then we are off, and then we come back for another 6. But in that time, we spend 12 hours a day, Monday through Friday, with these people. And so at first, when we first went to Salt Lake, we didn't have any other support system. We only had each other as
Mm.
friends. So that first season was really great because we were all sort of under the radar. Nobody knew who we were. Nobody cared. So we were able to go wherever we wanted, and do whatever we wanted. We went roller skating once. We would go bowling. We had a ton of game nights. We went out to eat all the time. Now, of course, it's a little bit different because if we go somewhere, people know who we
Yeah,
are.
yeah.
Um, but but we still have that bond, because it was so great getting to have that first year to have that bond because it, I think, set us up for um, yeah, for what we have. And because one of the amazing parts about our cast is that we are all so different and we all have different skills. So
Mhm.
I am the only person in the cast that is a tap dancer. Other people have worn tap shoes and dance, but as far as like being a tap dancer, capital T capital D, like that's me.
Yeah.
And Josh is the person that writes songs and plays guitar, and Olivia has her own music, but it's completely different than Josh's. And Joe is an amazing piano player, and Sophia's an amazing dancer. So it's like, everybody has their own thing, and I think because of that, it's made the show better and more diverse, in terms of skill and what we can bring to the table. And then I think it's also encouraged each of us to grow and be better.
Yeah, I like to say that if I'm around people who have skills that I don't, they push me to
Yeah,
be a
of
better
course.
person and also a performer. And I
Yeah,
think the
and that's
two, yeah, just
huge in our show, for
coincide
sure.
with each other.
Yeah.
And I actually see that relationship, the chemistry that you all have in the show, which I don't think you guys have to act at all, which I
Yeah.
don't see you all doing, especially the board game episode. You guys
Right.
were all in the living room, played a board game, and it just looked like I was just watching friends just have fun and joke around.
Yeah. That's my
And
favorite episode of the first season, for
yeah,
sure.
which episode was it? I can't remember what number it was.
7.
7. Okay.
Yeah,
And
it
there
was
were
the
nine,
Thanksgiving
9 or
episode.
10 altogether.
There were 10 in the first season. Yeah.
Okay, great. Yeah. Well, how are you staying hopeful during this pandemic?
Yeah. I think that it's challenging because there are certain people that, I don't know, I think I've never been more aware of like privilege and being able to do things that not like being able to have things that not everybody has. Like I have a comfortable, safe home environment to go to, and not everybody has that. I have instruments to play and an internet connection. Um, and not everybody has that. People are having to do online school and they don't have a laptop or, a place to get Wi-Fi so that they can actually do their classes online. Um, and that's been, I think, the hardest part. I mean, in terms of being alone and being quarantined, I wish I could say that it's been harder, but I'm kind of an introvert anyway, and
Yeah.
I do like my time alone. I'm an only child, so I kind of grew up being comfortable with being with myself.
Yeah.
So that hasn't been too much of a damper on my spirits, although I know other people it's been hard.
Hmm.
um,
Like
but
me,
it
I'm a very extrovert.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But again, I mean, I think just the best thing that we can do, I think the way to stay hopeful is by just going through the hard time, because the more that I stay inside, even if it's hard, that's the only way that I know how to help make the situation better faster.
Hmm.
Of course, like I can donate to this thing or that thing, and I've donated to the Actors Fund. I've donated to um, a few of the No Kid Hungry, associations and
Yeah.
organizations. But ultimately, the best way to get through this is to stay inside or to stay
Hmm.
home. And so I think, to me, that gives me hope because I know that it's going to end if we play our part.
Exactly. And I was just speaking to one of my teachers, my acting teacher, about this. And, theater and TV and film are healing arts.
Yeah,
Um, so to be able to, and everyone's, posting on, Facebook and Instagram that, I've watched this show, Tiger
right.
King, or, I watched that show.
Of course.
And it's the outlet that so many people have to just either grieve or, be happy, get angry, because shows and movies and television shows not only allow that from audiences but demand it from audiences,
Right.
because it's such an emotional arc. So I just like to thank you for being part of a show that will give people the outlet to be happy, to be sad. I
Yeah,
have
thank
gotten
you.
quite emotional watching your show throughout its season one.
Well,
um,
it's actually been exciting too because our show launched in Europe during all of this. So during this whole pandemic, Disney Plus launched in Europe, and people were able to see the show there for the first time. And so it's been actually very exciting getting to see a whole new audience love the show. And then also being able to see the American audiences love it even more and rewatch it, and
Yeah, have any of
whatever that
your
way.
I'm sure they have, but have you had any friends watch the show and be like, "Oh my gosh, I know that guy."
Yeah. I mean, I think when the show first came out, we had a couple of like viewing parties with my friends in New York and my
Mhm.
friends on Long Island, and so we did a couple of that, a couple of those kind of things. But yeah, I mean, I've had friends that I haven't talked to in a very long time, say, I saw that you were on this, but I, never reached out. Like, just want to say it's so great, yada yada. So that's been really great too. Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, I just want to thank you so much again for taking time out of your day to do this with me, to spread some hope and joy. Um, we don't yet know when season two will come out, but everyone,
Not
if you
yet.
haven't watched season one yet, watch it. It's not going anywhere, and you're not going anywhere because you're
I'm not
staying at
going
home.
anywhere.
You have nothing to lose.
Yeah.
Again, Larry Saperstein, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And I will see you soon. Bye.
Bye. Thanks.
And thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Remember to be kind, tell someone how much you love them, and always choose joy. Bye.